This is the Cook and Eat Show, and this episode is called What's in My Fridge. This is where I put together snacks and meals from stuff around my kitchen. Sometimes there's a plan. Most times I'm just making it up as I go. Let's see what happens. Today I wanted to get rid of some things because I had some leftovers that I was given of beans and rice and really good stuff, a lot of grains. I have old potatoes that are pretty squishy that I need to get rid of before they go bad. And at the same time, I've got some fresh vegetables that I want to add. And I've decided, why not throw everything together and make a soup? And so that is what is in my fridge. I'm using a vegetable broth. Any vegetable broth or chicken broth or beef broth, any broth will do, honestly. It just adds another layer of flavor. And of course, as always, I'm using garlic. For my seasonings, I've decided to go for a more hearty flavor. And I'm using turmeric, black pepper, fennel, curry powder, paprika, cumin, and mustard powder. I love making herb-filled soups. Unfortunately, I don't grow my own herbs yet. I'm going to be using parsley, thyme, basil, and chopped chives, dried, in this one. This is the initial amount of seasonings and herbs that I'll use. But as I cook and taste the soup, I'll add more. Let's get started. I've actually had these carrots for a few weeks now. I was looking at videos of how to keep vegetables for longer, and it turns out if you just cut off the green parts, the leaves, and essentially keep them submerged completely in water, then they'll last for a pretty long time. I think I've had these for almost a month so far. It's pretty cool. Now, because it's a soup, I'll be cutting the carrots into slightly chunky pieces so that they don't overcook as they cook with everything else, but they'll still be tender enough to match the texture of the other foods. I was a little nervous about these potatoes because they were soft, guys. They were really soft. But looking at the insides of them, and never minding the withered look, they're actually completely fine. They have a nice white yellowish inside, and that's letting me know that I'm not going to kill myself eating this food. Now, cabbage. I wasn't sure if I wanted to add the cabbage, but I said, why not? So I'm thinking of maybe slicing it up. I never really know how I want to cut cabbage until I start chopping at it, honestly. So I'll be cutting it into thin slices and then cutting those in half so they're not too big. I don't want cabbage noodles. Although cabbage noodles sounds like a really good idea for another day. I pretty much chop away at my cabbage and reuse cabbage in other recipes for later. I'm thinking that because I'm using the red potatoes, that this size I have going on, everything will cook pretty evenly. Nothing will be too overcooked or too undercooked. But a little overcooked with potatoes is really just mashed potatoes. So does it matter? I love food. I love it. Let's get cooking. Now I've already added the broth I'm just going to add a little bit of garlic here, and by a little bit I mean several spoonfuls. You can never have enough garlic, to be honest. Rather than cooking everything all at once at the exact same time, I'm starting with the potatoes to let those cook down just a little bit. Red potatoes are softer and don't take very long to cook in the first place. However, I want to be sure that these are absolutely cooked before adding anything else. I'm just checking for how translucent the potatoes are, and that's telling me how cooked they are. These aren't that translucent, which is good. So now it's time to add in everything else. Something that I try to practice as I cook things is timing. If you time things just right, or even pretty close to just right, you can really match the textures between things, unless you're a person who likes their veggies pretty crunchy overall. Depending on what I'm cooking, I like things crunchy or less crunchy. I used to like really mushy vegetables, and luckily I've grown up and I don't so much like mush vegetables anymore. Now, even though this mixture that I mentioned of black beans and black-eyed peas, barley, red rice, that was already cooked. However, it's okay for me to just cook it down a little bit more. I'm going to leave it on top for a while and add in the different seasonings and herbs that I mentioned now. Have things simmer and cook together, just to get the flavor right. Then I'll be mixing everything up later. I'll give this just a little bit of a stir, not too much, because again, I want the potatoes and carrots to be on the bottom to get most of the heat, and everything else can essentially get residual heat being on top. It'll cook a little less quickly. So let's check in, and things are looking pretty good. At this point, I've just mixed it all together just to make sure that the flavor is there for everything. The potatoes are pretty much done at this point. Tasting the carrot. Yeah, it's almost done, and I think I need cornbread. So let's make cornbread. Cornbread is such an easy and simple thing to make, honestly. I mean, of course, there's always making it from the box. Jiffy, go-to, it's good stuff. But since I had cornmeal, I had flour, I said, why not? I'm going to mix the dry ingredients together to create that consistency. This is something that I've learned to do through some baking trial and error. I'll only need 1 egg in here. And I like butter. So I melted some butter and added that. I really love when cornbread has a nice buttery flavor. And then about 2 cups of milk. Now I use non-dairy milk because that's just the main type of, I guess, milk that I consume. But obviously normal cow milk will work. And then for this I used coconut oil. And then instead of adding the suggested sugar, I used agave. I'll link the recipe in the description and include what substitutions I made to the recipe.
One thing I did here was use the actual baking pan to mix everything, and that was because as far as cornbread is concerned, and anything that is as simple as cornbread, I'm first mixing dry ingredients, then wet ingredients, and from that point putting it into the oven. Something I like to do with my cornbread is add a little honey. I like sweetened cornbread. I didn't add a ton of honey, but I did want to be able to taste the honey a little bit more than the agave. This took about 10 or 12 minutes to bake in the oven. It's super quick, super simple. I think normally I would let it brown a little bit more on top, but honestly I was ready to eat. So let's see how it actually turned out, because I was a little worried not seeing the browned top that it didn't cook enough. Oh no, that looks good. Ooh. Guys, this looks good, it smells good, and I just know it's gonna be good. I love it when things in my fridge come together. So I will see you later.
Well, I hope you guys enjoyed that as much as I enjoyed putting it together. Thanks for watching. Till next time, keep eating.